Okay, let's dive in. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at some really practical source material. It's all about helping you express your opinions, confidently and naturally in English.
Yeah, it really hones in on that feeling, that common hurdle lots of learners hit, right? You've got the grammar down, maybe a decent vocabulary, but then actually sharing what you think or reacting, it feels, I don't know, kind of stiff.
Or limited somehow.
Exactly. Limited. You end up just falling back on, like, I think this or I agree over and over.
And look, those phrases work, they're correct. But the source material we're digging into today really emphasizes how real conversations, whether it's just casual chat or maybe a debate or even like a work meeting, they're way more fluid than that.
Much more dynamic.
Yeah, it's about showing nuance, showing a bit of how you feel about something, not just what you think, and connecting with what the other person is saying in a more natural way.
Yeah.
Less textbooky.
Right. More like you actually sound when you're comfortable. It's moving beyond just correctness into authentic communication where your personality actually comes through.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the strategies from the source, break them down, and basically build you a toolkit.
The idea is by the end, you'll have a much richer set of tools, more options for sharing your thoughts, agreeing, disagreeing, and doing it all feeling more comfortable and sounding more confident in English.
We're focusing on the 4 main areas the source highlights. First up, how to give your opinion with more confidence and variety, getting away from just constantly saying, I think.
Then second, how to agree with people in a way that sounds, natural and polite, not just abrupt.
Third, and this is a big one for many people, how to disagree respectfully. Because disagreements happen, right?
Yeah.
But how you handle them is key.
Absolutely. And finally, the fourth area is all about adding a bit of personality, making your opinions more engaging, more interesting to listen to, more like how a native speaker might actually phrase things.
It's about expanding that range, giving you choices so you can pick the right phrase for the moment.
Exactly. Like adding different settings to your communication style.
Okay, so let's start with that first core area from the source. Giving your opinion confidently, using phrases that go beyond just, I think.
Right. And the source makes a really good point here. I think is fine. It's perfectly correct. But relying on it all the time, it can make your speech sound a little
monotonous.
Yeah, monotonous or maybe less sophisticated. Using different phrases just adds variety, shows you've got a better handle on the language.
It's like different ways of framing a picture, isn't it? I think is the basic frame. But sometimes you need something a bit more ornate or maybe something simpler. These phrases are like those different frames for your ideas.
That's a great analogy. And the source gives us some really useful ones. Things like, in my opinion, personally, I believe, from my perspective, I'd say that, and as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, let's break those down. Really see how they work with plenty of examples. That's where the real learning happens, right? The source starts with, in my opinion. The example given is, in my opinion, learning a new language is one of the best ways to expand your thinking.
Which is a good example. It's quite direct.
Yeah.
In my opinion, is probably the most straightforward alternative to I think. It just clearly flags what's coming next as your view.
And it feels pretty versatile, like formal or informal.
Yeah, I'd say so. It works in most situations when you just want to state your belief or judgment clearly.
Yeah.
No ambiguity.
Okay, let's brainstorm some more uses then. How about movies? You could say, in my opinion, the sequel wasn't nearly as good as the original.
Right. Or maybe about food. In my opinion, pineapple does belong on pizza. Controversial, maybe.
Brave. Or talking about cities. In my opinion, walkable cities are much more pleasant to live in.
Definitely. How about work-related stuff? In my opinion, flexible working hours really boost productivity for our team.
Yeah, that works. Or technology. In my opinion, relying too much on social media for news can be problematic.
Or even something simpler, like daily routines. In my opinion, starting the day with a glass of water is a really good habit.
See? It just slots right in. Clearly marks it as your viewpoint, but sounds maybe a touch more formal or considered than just, I think.
It's a solid all-purpose phrase. Now, the next one the source mentions is personally, I believe. Adding that word personally, it changes the flavor a bit, doesn't it?
It really does. Personally immediately puts the focus on you, the individual. It signals this isn't just a casual thought, it's maybe something you feel quite strongly about or something rooted in your own values or experience.
And I believe often sounds stronger than I think, too. I think can sometimes feel a bit tentative, like you're still figuring it out. I believe suggests more conviction.
Exactly. The source's example captures that. Personally, I believe remote work is fantastic because it gives people more flexibility. You can really hear the conviction there, can't you?
You can? It feels like they've thought about it or maybe experienced it directly. Let's try some more. How about education? Personally, I believe learning through projects is more engaging than just lectures.
Ooh, good one. That sounds like a pedagogical belief. Or about, say, environmental issues. Personally, I believe individual actions, while small, collectively make a significant difference.
Yeah, that has that conviction. Or maybe relationships. Personally, I believe trust is something that has to be earned, not just given.
Yeah.
Feels like a core principle.
How about travel? Personally, I believe solo travel is an amazing way to discover yourself. That sounds like it comes from personal experience.
Or even just a preference, but stated strongly. Personally, I believe weekends are for relaxing, not for catching up on chores.
Yeah, I can get behind that one. So, personally, I believe is great when you want to emphasize that it's your strong individual conviction or deeply held view.
Precisely. Okay, moving on. The source also suggests, from my perspective, this one feels different again, more positional.
Yeah, perspective is the key word. It suggests you're looking at something from a particular angle, shaped by your role or your experience or where you're standing, metaphorically speaking. It kind of acknowledges that other people, from their perspectives, might see it differently.
Exactly. It's less about stating a universal truth and more about sharing how you see it, given your viewpoint. The source didn't give a specific example for this one, so we can play around.
Okay. Imagine you're in a team meeting discussing a problem. You could say, from my perspective, the communication breakdown seems to happen during the handoff stage. You're identifying the issue based on your observation point in the workflow.
Nice. We're talking about a historical event. From my perspective, the economic implications were far more significant than the political ones. You're highlighting the aspect that seems most important from your analytical viewpoint.
Good one. How about discussing art or music? From my perspective, the artist's later work shows a lot more emotional depth. It's your interpretation based on how you perceive it.
Or maybe parenting styles. From my perspective, encouraging independence early on is really beneficial for children. You're offering a view based on your philosophy, or perhaps experience.
Or even navigating a city. From my perspective, taking the subway is much faster than driving during rush hour, even if it's more crowded. That's based on your experience of the local transport.
So, from my perspective, works really well when you want to offer your viewpoint as one angle, especially if the topic is complex or subjective and you implicitly acknowledge other views might exist.
Yeah, it's quite a nuanced one. Okay, next up from the source, I'd say that this feels much more common, more everyday.
It really is. I'd say that.
Yeah.
It's a very natural sounding phrase, often a bit less formal, maybe a bit softer than, in my opinion, or I believe. It's like you're gently offering your thought or assessment.
Like a casual observation almost.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't carry the same weight. It's perfect for, less serious topics or when you just want to sound less assertive. The source actually used this later in the pizza example, but let's make some standalone ones here.
Okay. How about guessing something? I'd say that movie probably cost a fortune to make. Just a casual guess based on what you saw.
Or giving a quick impression. I'd say the new cafe seems pretty popular. It's always busy.
Right. Or offering mild advice. If you're feeling tired, I'd say that taking a short break might help.
Or reacting to something someone just did. Wow, I'd say that was a really impressive presentation. A simple compliment.
Or even estimating something. How long will it take? Oh, I'd say that drive will take about an hour, maybe a bit more with traffic.
It's just incredibly versatile for everyday chat, isn't it? When you're just sharing your thoughts without making a big deal out of it. Very natural.
Definitely. Okay, the last one in this group from the sources, as far as I'm concerned, this one has a particular ring to it.
It does, as far as I'm concerned. Often implies that you're stating your opinion based on what matters to you personally or within a specific boundary that you've set. It can sometimes subtly suggest that other factors might exist, but this is what's relevant from your viewpoint.
Yeah, like within the scope of my concern, or what matters in my book, the source example hinted at this. As far as I'm concerned, it's a great option, remote work, but it depends on the person's job and lifestyle. See that qualification? For me, it's good, but...
That qualifier is often implied, even if not stated. You're focusing on your key takeaway or priority. Let's try some more. Talk about project priorities. As far as I'm concerned, meeting the client's deadline is the absolute top priority right now. You're stating what you see as non-negotiable.
Good one. Or maybe about friendship qualities. As far as I'm concerned, loyalty is the most important quality in a friend. You're highlighting your personal value.
How about evaluating a proposal? There are lots of details, but as far as I'm concerned, the main question is whether it's financially sustainable. You're cutting to what you see as the core issue.
Or even a simple preference again. As far as I'm concerned, nothing beats a good cup of coffee first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Stating your ultimate preference.
Or defending a choice. People might disagree, but as far as I'm concerned, choosing the simpler option was the right decision for us at the time.
So, as far as I'm concerned, is useful for zeroing in on your personal priority or the aspect you find most crucial, sometimes implicitly setting aside other considerations.
Yeah. So just recap those quickly.
Yeah.
In my opinion, clear, direct. Personally, I believe, strong individual conviction. From my perspective, one angle, acknowledging others, I'd say that. Casual, everyday assessment. And as far as I'm concerned, focusing on personal priority or scope.
Wow, okay. Just having those 5 alternatives already gives you so much more flexibility than just sticking with, I think. You can choose the one that fits the nuance you want to convey.
Absolutely. It adds precision, it adds sophistication, and that naturally makes you sound more confident and more fluent.
It takes a bit of conscious effort at first, but it pays off. Totally. It's about building that mental muscle. Okay, so that's giving your own opinion. But conversations are two-way streets, right? The source material moves on to responding to others, specifically how to agree naturally.
Ah, yes. Agreement. Because you share your view, they share theirs, and often you find common ground. And the source points out, quite rightly, that just saying, I agree, can sometimes feel a bit blunt.
Yeah, or like a full stop. It doesn't always invite more conversation. It's correct, obviously, but it doesn't show much engagement.
Exactly. Natural agreement often involves a bit more, maybe showing how much you agree, or validating why their point is good, or even adding a little something extra that connects to their idea.
And the source provides some excellent phrases for doing just that, making agreement sound more natural and, well, agreeable.
Things like, I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I couldn't agree more. You're absolutely right. And exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Let's say I completely agree with you. It's straightforward, like I agree, but that word completely just dials up the intensity, doesn't it? Full agreement.
It does. Leaves no room for doubt. You're 100% on board. Now, the source gave an example for you're absolutely right, which showed this pattern of agreeing and adding a bit more. Remember the exercise one? Someone says exercise helps mental health.
Oh, yeah. The response was, you're absolutely right. Exercise helps reduce stress and keeps you energized. So you agree strongly, absolutely right. And then you add how it helps, reduces stress, gives energy.
Precisely. That's the key pattern often found in natural agreement. You validate and you build slightly. Let's try applying that pattern to the other phrases, using I completely agree with you.
Okay. If someone says the city really needs more green spaces, you could reply, I completely agree with you. Having parks nearby makes such a difference to quality of life. You agree, and add the reason it's good.
Nice. Or if they say, learning to cook is a really valuable life skill, you could say, I completely agree with you. It saves money and it's healthier too. Agree, add benefits.
Okay, how about, that's a great point. The source used this one too, I think.
Yes, in the exercise example again, that's a great point. I always feel better after a workout. This phrase is lovely because it explicitly compliments their contribution. You're telling them their insight was valuable.
It's very validating. So if someone suggests, maybe we should take a break, we've been working on this for hours, you could say, that's a great point. My brain is starting to feel fried. You agree and share your own supporting feeling.
Exactly. Or if they observe, using reusable bags is such an easy way to reduce plastic waste. You could respond, that's a great point. It barely takes any effort, but the impact adds up. Agree and reinforce the ease impact.
Love it. Now, the next one is super strong. I couldn't agree more.
Oh yeah, this is maximum agreement. It literally means it's impossible for you to agree any more than you already do. You use this when you feel really strongly aligned with what they said.
Okay, so if someone says, the customer service at that company is just terrible, you might reply with feeling, oh, I couldn't agree more. I had such a bad experience with them last month. Strong agreement plus personal anecdote.
Perfect. Or if they say, this documentary was incredibly moving and thought-provoking, you could say, I couldn't agree more. It really stayed with me for days afterwards. Strong agreement plus impact.
Great. Okay. Then we have you're absolutely right and Exactly, that's what I was thinking. We saw, you're absolutely right, in the source example, also paired with adding detail.
Yeah, you're absolutely right is another strong one, similar to, I completely agree, emphasizing the correctness of their statement. And it exactly is just so common and useful for that moment of perfect alignment. Adding, that's what I was thinking, just reinforces that you were on the same wavelength.
Right. So if someone complains the instructions for assembling this furniture are impossible to follow, you could say, you're absolutely right. I spent ages trying to figure out step 3. You validate their frustration and share your own struggle.
Or if someone proposes an idea in a meeting, what if we tried approaching the problem from this angle instead? You might jump in with, exactly, that's what I was thinking. I think that could unlock a solution. Shows immediate alignment and enthusiasm.
These phrases are so much better than just a flat I agree, aren't they? They show different levels of agreement, they make the other person feel heard and validated, and they keep the conversation flowing.
Definitely. It turns agreement into an active part of the dialogue, not just a passive acknowledgement. Builds rapport, shows you're listening. Really important stuff.
Absolutely vital. But, okay, life isn't all agreement, is it? The source material rightly points out that disagreements are normal, even healthy. The crucial part is how you handle them. The source stresses disagreeing politely.
Yeah, this is often the trickiest bit for language learners, I think, because a blunt, I disagree or you're wrong can just feel so confrontational.
Right, it can shut down the conversation immediately, make the other person defensive. The source offers phrases designed to soften the disagreement. And the key strategy:
Acknowledge first. Show you've heard and understood their point before you introduce your own different perspective.
that structure makes all the difference. Acknowledging their point cushions the disagreement. So the phrases from the source include, I see your point, but. P, I get what you're saying, but I feel differently. Ah, that's an interesting perspective, but I think. I respect your opinion, but I have a different view. And I get where you're coming from, but I see it differently.
Let's tackle, I see your point, but.
Mm-hmm.
Super clear structure. Acknowledge, I see your point, then pivot with but. The source example was about social media, remember? Someone says it's bad.
Right. The reply was, I see your point, but I think social media has some benefits too, like keeping people connected. You show you understand the bad argument, but then gently offer a counterpoint about the good. So much smoother.
Infinitely smoother. Let's practice that structure. If someone insists working from home reduces team collaboration, you could say,
I see your point about the potential challenges for collaboration, but I think with the right tools and intentional effort, teams can collaborate effectively remotely. Acknowledge the challenge, offer a solution-focused counter.
Perfect. Or discussing a movie ending someone loved. I see your point. It was certainly unexpected, but I think it didn't really fit with the character's development throughout the film. Acknowledge the positive, unexpected. Critique another aspect. Character fit.
Or a budget decision. I see your point that cutting the marketing budget saves money now, but I think it could hurt our brand visibility in the long term. Acknowledge short-term gain, raise long-term risk.
Great examples. Okay, next. I get what you're saying, but I feel differently. How is this one slightly different?
Well, I get what you're saying. Feels like you understand their reasoning, maybe the logic behind it. And I feel differently highlights that your disagreement stems more from your personal feeling, assessment, or maybe intuition.
Yeah, that makes sense. Good for subjective things. The source example was quite general. I get what you're saying, but I feel differently about that. Let's make it more specific.
Okay. Someone argues, this traditional approach is the most reliable way to do it. You could respond, I get what you're saying about reliability, but I feel differently. I think experimenting with a newer method might yield better results in this case. Understand their value, reliability. Propose exploration based on a feeling about potential.
Nice. Or about a piece of music.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. The technical skill is impressive, but I feel differently. It just doesn't connect with me emotionally.
Yeah.
Acknowledge technical merit, state differing emotional response.
Okay, the source also lists, that's an interesting perspective, but I think this one feels particularly polite.
It is. Calling someone's view interesting is a really nice way to validate it, especially if it's maybe unusual or something you strongly disagree with but want to handle gently. It shows you're considering it thoughtfully before pivoting.
Gives them credit for adding something to the discussion. The source example used this for social media too. That's an interesting perspective that it's bad, but I actually think it depends on how people use it. Call it interesting, then offer a more nuanced view.
Let's try another. Someone argues technology is making people less social in real life. You could say, that's an interesting perspective, but I think in many ways, technology actually helps people maintain connections they might otherwise lose. Acknowledge their view, offer the counter-argument.
Or about a proposed solution. That's an interesting perspective, focusing entirely on cost reduction. But I think we also need to consider the potential impact on quality. Acknowledge their focus, introduce another important factor.
Works well. Then there's, I respect your opinion, but I have a different view. This one feels like it explicitly addresses the potential for sensitivity.
Exactly. You're making it clear. I respect you and your right to your opinion, even though I don't share the opinion itself. Good for potentially touchy subjects. The source example was simple. I respect your opinion, but I feel differently about that. Let's add context.
Okay, discussing maybe different political approaches. I respect your opinion on how to handle that issue, but I have a different view based on my understanding of the potential consequences. Respectful acknowledgement states difference based on analysis.
Or maybe disagreeing with advice from a friend. Look, I really respect your opinion and I know you mean well, but I have a different view on what I should do in this situation. Acknowledges good intent, asserts personal choice respectfully.
And the last one. I get where you're coming from, but I see it differently. Very similar to, I get what you're saying, but maybe emphasizes understanding the origin or motivation behind their view more.
Yeah, I think so. Like you understand the experiences or reasons that led them to that conclusion. If someone explains why they made a certain choice. Okay, I get where you're coming from. You were under a lot of pressure at the time, but I see it differently. I still think consulting the team first would have been better. Acknowledge the pressure, state a different preferred process.
Good one. Or about someone's lifestyle choice. I get where you're coming from. You value security and stability. But I see it differently. For me, taking risks and seeking new experiences is more important right now. Understand their values, contrast with your own differing values.
Phew. Okay, these polite disagreement phrases are just gold, aren't they? They let you share your thoughts honestly, challenge ideas, explore different angles, all without damaging the relationship or shutting down the conversation.
They really do. They turn potential conflict into constructive dialogue. That acknowledgement piece is the secret sauce.
Totally. Okay, so we've covered giving opinions, agreeing, and disagreeing. The final piece of the puzzle from the source material is about injecting more life into it, making your opinions sound more engaging and, well, more like you.
Exactly. Because just stating opinions, even politely, can still be a bit dry sometimes. Native speakers often use little tricks, introductory phrases, bits of emotion, humor, to make their speech more colorful and personal. The source highlights two main ways.
Right. First, using natural introductory expressions. The source lists these. Honestly, I think. To be fair, I'd say. And if you ask me.
Let's look at honestly, I think. Adding
Okay.
honestly just gives it that little touch of sincerity, maybe. Or perhaps you're emphasizing that this is your genuine, unfiltered take.
Yeah, it feels a bit more vulnerable or direct. The source example had that feel. Honestly, I think learning English is one of the best investments in yourself. Sounds really heartfelt.
It does. Let's try it elsewhere, maybe giving constructive feedback. Honestly, I think the report could be stronger if you included more specific data. Softens it slightly while being direct.
Or expressing a worry. Honestly, I think I might have left the oven on. Just a candid thought.
Huh, yes. Or simple preference. Honestly, I think cats are much more independent than dogs. Just stating your genuine feeling.
Or admitting something. Honestly, I think I prefer staying in tonight. I'm pretty tired.
So, honestly, I think adds that layer of personal authenticity.
Nice. Okay, next. To be fair, I'd say. What's the function of this one?
This one is about balance. You use it when you want to introduce a point that considers another side of the argument, or maybe offers a concession, or just provides a more balanced view after something else has been said. Right, like you're trying to be objective or acknowledge complexity. The source didn't give a specific example for this exact phrase, so let's make some up.
Okay. Someone complains about a difficult colleague. You could say, yeah, he can be challenging, but to be fair, I'd say he gets results.
Acknowledging the negative, balancing with a positive.
Good one. Or discussing a failed project. It didn't achieve its goals, that's true. But to be fair, I'd say we were working with unrealistic deadlines from the start. Balancing the failure with mitigating context.
Or comparing two options. Option A is cheaper, definitely. But to be fair, I'd say option B offers much better long-term value. Balancing cost versus value.
Or even defending someone slightly. Okay, maybe he wasn't very communicative, but to be fair, I'd say he had a lot on his plate personally at the time, offering context for fairness.
To be fair, I'd say Really shows you're thinking critically and trying to present a balanced picture. Adds depth.
Definitely. And the last intro phrase, if you ask me,
Mm.
this one's quite informal, right? Yeah, very much so. It's like you're offering your personal opinion, maybe even if nobody explicitly asked for it, but in a casual, low-key way. Like, here's my little thought on the matter.
My 2 cents, yeah. The source example was classic. If you ask me, coffee is better than tea any day. Just a straightforward personal preference, stated casually.
Let's try some others. Offering unsolicited advice. If you ask me, you should probably get that checked out. A gentle suggestion.
Or commenting on a situation. If you ask me, they should have announced that decision much earlier. A casual critique.
Or making a prediction. If you ask me, it's probably going to rain this afternoon. Just your hunch.
Or expressing a simple opinion on, say, a design. If you ask me, the blue one looks much better than the red one.
Perfect for just dropping your opinion into the conversation without making it sound too formal or important. These little intros, honestly, to be fair, if you ask me, they really help smooth the way for your opinion and signal your tone.
They do. Small words, big impact on flow. Now, the second way the source suggests adding engagement is even more fun. Injecting emotion or humor.
Ah, yes, this is where the personality really comes out. The source gave those two fantastic examples. The first one was about pizza.
I'd say pineapple on pizza is a crime, but that's just me.
It's brilliant. You've got the casual intro, I'd say, then the huge exaggeration, a crime, which is funny, and then you immediately soften it with, but that's just me. It states a strong preference, but makes it lighthearted and totally relatable.
Exactly. It's not just an opinion, it's entertaining. Let's try creating more like that. How about dealing with tech support? Honestly, I think navigating those automated phone menus is designed to test the limits of human sanity, but maybe I'm just impatient.
Love it. Exaggeration plus self-deprecation. Or talking about assembling furniture. If you ask me, those instructions were written in ancient hieroglyphics, or possibly Klingon. Humorous comparison.
Or dislike chore. To be fair, I'd say my willingness to do ironing is inversely proportional to the size of the pile, using mock formal language for humor.
Nice. Okay, the other source example used a strong comparison to show emotion. Honestly, I'd rather wake up at 5 a.m. than sit in traffic for 2 hours.
Yeah, this structure is great for conveying how much you feel something. Comparing it to something else relatable and often unpleasant like 5 a.m. wake-ups makes the strength of your feeling instantly clear. Traffic at worse than 5 a.m. Got it.
So we can use that pattern, talking about boring meetings. Personally, I believe I'd rather watch C-SPAN reruns for 8 hours straight than sit through another one of those budget meetings. Exaggerated comparison to express extreme boredom.
Ouch. Or about annoying sounds. Honestly, I think I'd rather listen to nails on a chalkboard than hear that phone notification chime one more time. Comparison showing intense irritation.
Or about difficult tasks. To be fair, I'd say trying to get my toddler dressed in the morning is like wrestling an octopus into a wetsuit. Vivid, humorous comparison conveying difficulty.
These are great. They show that engaging opinions aren't just logical statements. They're packed with feeling, personality, humor. By using exaggeration, comparisons, a bit of wit, you're not just telling people what you think. You're showing them how you feel about it.
And that makes you so much more memorable, more relatable, more interesting to talk to.
Absolutely. It's moving beyond just communicating information to actually connecting with people through shared feelings and humor.
Yeah.
It takes a bit of practice, maybe feeling a bit brave, but it's so worth it for making your English sound truly natural and engaging.
And that pretty much wraps up our deep dive into this really useful source material. We've gone through giving opinions with more flair, agreeing naturally, disagreeing politely, and adding that vital spark of personality.
Yeah, it's a fantastic toolkit. Moving beyond the basics of I think and I agree to using phrases like, from my perspective, I couldn't agree more, I see your point, but, and adding things like honestly, or even a bit of humor. It just opens up so much more expressive potential.
So the key takeaways really are, mix up your opinion phrases. Don't just say, I agree. Use stronger or more validating phrases and add a bit more. When you disagree, always acknowledge their point first, using those polite structures. And finally, weave in those introductory phrases and don't shy away from showing emotion or using humor appropriately.
Do all that. Practice it, and you will sound more confident, more fluent, and way more natural when you speak English. It's about letting your actual voice and perspective shine through.
And speaking of practice, the source leaves us with a really concrete challenge task, something for you, the listener, to actively do, because knowing this stuff is one thing, Using it is another.
Right. It's a three-step challenge. Step one, just find a chance to have a conversation in English. Any topic could be online, with a friend, language partner, anyone, where you get to express an opinion.
Step 2. During that chat, consciously try to use at least one of the alternative opinion phrases we talked about. And, if possible, use a phrase for agreeing or disagreeing politely, and maybe try adding an intro expression or that touch of personality. Just pick one or two things to focus on.
And step three, this is crucial. Afterwards, reflect. Just take a minute. How did it feel using that phrase? Did you feel more confident? Did it sound okay? What worked well? What could you maybe try differently next time?
That reflection step is what turns practice into real learning, doesn't it? You become aware of your own communication. It guides what you focus on next time. And hey, don't aim for perfection. Just aim for trying it out. Progress over perfection.
Totally. It'll feel a bit clunky at first, maybe,
Yeah.
like you're consciously searching for the words.
Right.
But that's normal. The more you do it, the more these phrases just become part of your natural repertoire. They'll start popping out automatically.
The source also hinted at what might come next, kind of building on this foundation, storytelling in English.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Being able to tell a good story, a short anecdote, explaining something that happened, is another massive part of natural, engaging conversation, isn't it?
Definitely. It complements expressing opinions beautifully. You can illustrate your point with a story, share an experience. The source mentioned looking at things like story structure, using past tenses effectively, keeping people engaged.
It's all part of the same goal, really, moving beyond just functional language to truly connecting and communicating in a rich, human way. So storytelling would be a great next step.
Keep an eye out for that, maybe. But for now, the focus is on putting today's tools into practice. This source material really drives home that your opinion, your perspective, it matters. And learning how to articulate it well in English confidently, naturally, respectfully isn't just about language points. It's about making sure your voice gets heard.
It really is empowering. It lets you participate more fully, share what makes you unique, and build stronger connections.
So think about it. As you go through your week, what conversations might come up? Where might you have a chance to try out from my perspective? Or, I couldn't agree more. Or even, a pineapple on pizza is a crime type of comment.
Because learning to express yourself like this, navigating agreement and disagreement constructively, it shapes more than just your English skills. It shapes your interactions, your relationships, how effectively you can share your ideas in the world.
It's a really fundamental communication skill, whatever language you're using.
So yeah, take on the challenge. Just try one phrase, see how it feels.
Keep talking, keep practicing, and really enjoy the process of finding your confident, fluent voice in English.
We'll see you next time for the deep dive.
Bye for now.